Hey guys, I'm on my way to a meeting, but the traffic is very bad. So I figured that instead of sitting here in the quiet with my thoughts, I would instead make a video and try to update you guys a little bit on some of the things that I'm quite honestly a little bit tired of posting updates about in the Slack group. And the reason I say I'm tired of it, I don't mean that in like a derogatory way or anything like that. I just mean that I feel like I'm being repetitive. Every time I put out a message, like an update type of message, it's essentially the same thing. Hey guys, I'm sorry, I've got a lot going on right now. I know that some of you are waiting to hear from me, and I haven't had a chance to respond to many of you. Please don't take it personally. Just know that I'm trying my best, blah, blah, blah. Same thing every time. So I don't think that that's doing any of us any good. So I figured that it would be a little bit easier to elaborate with a video. So as I'm sure most of you know at this point, if you've been a member of the Slack group for any period of time, I shut down my agency recently. I'm going to make a completely different video about that, about the reasons that I decided to leave the collection industry, because it's sort of something I have very mixed feelings about. Part of me wants to say I love the debt collection industry, but then another part of me looks at it like a toxic. I'm trying to be nice here. When it's good, but when it's bad, it's soul crushing. So I've been in the collection industry for the last decade, and I've had a lot of good times. I've had a good run, but I'm ready for something else now. And my software is, and has been for a while, software development, software engineering. And so that's what I've been spending my time with lately. And I sort of found a different path to take. But I was very hesitant to get out of the collection industry, and that's why I've sort of taken on a consulting role with a lot of you guys. And I have to say I've met a lot of very cool people since I've started this group. There's a lot of very interesting people looking to get into the collection industry. And for every 15 or 20 people that join the group, one person actually opens an agency. And it's very cool to see that happen. So I know that some of you that are in here might not be actively running an agency. It might be something that you're still planning, or maybe you're collecting from home. And the one thing that I want to mention is that I made a lot more money when I was running a 1, 2, 3-man agency early on. And that wasn't always the case, because when we eventually did get up to 15 people and support staff, and even with 6, 7 people, it can be quite lucrative. But when you don't have the overhead of a collection agency, but you have 1 or 2 solid collectors bringing money in on purchased paper, it's nice. It's a very good investment. But there's some downside with that. Since the barrier to entry is so low, it means that bad actors get in very easily. There's a lot of people who are debt collectors, and they get a bonus check and decide they want to use that money to start a collection agency. And that's quite honestly how I started my agency. I did spend some time saving up, but ultimately it was a handful of bonus checks, and I was working a 9 to 5 and then going home and collecting on my own stuff from 6 to 10. And I did that until I had enough money to actually open a call center. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but there's a big mentality shift between running a business and being a debt collector. And I think that as a debt collector, you sort of have to find someone who's more well-versed in business and management if your primary strength is going to be strategy, and by strategy I mean how to work the paper, what type of paper to buy, how aggressive to be, or how light you should be working it, building relationships with other agencies and brokers, debt buyers, doctors' offices, whatever type of business model you want to take on. But the largest hurdle that everyone keeps running into is payment processing. And I did an entire video dedicated to ranting about how broken the payment processing industry is for high risk, specifically for debt collections, and I stick to that. And that's really a big reason why I decided I didn't want to run my agency anymore. Over the years, I've gone through 5 or 6 different processors. Some of those processors, I should say, we had them active for 2 or 3 years, and then one month we just had 3 or 4 chargebacks, and we only had 400 payments. And then that caused us to go through underwriting again, and then the person who did the underwriting didn't like how many declined transactions we had, and they shut the processor down. Things like that would happen periodically over the years, and I was lucky enough to have one processor that was fantastic. It accepted all 4 major card brands, both credit and debit, and it didn't have a reserve, which is almost unheard of these days. But I think that the reason that it's so difficult is because of so many non-businesses, and I don't want anyone to take that the wrong way, but I think what I'm trying to say is too many collect from home collectors applying for processors. Before 2013, before Operation Choke Point, you could be a collect from home debt collector and you could still get approved with a merchant account from EMS and probably not even have a reserve, most of the time. But things have gotten much more strict, and a merchant account is really something that you can't take for granted, and you need to have meticulous financial records dating back 2 years, both business and personal. You need at least 6 months of bank statements for the current business that you're applying for, which if you're a startup, that's obviously very problematic. But I'm not going to go into all of the issues in this video. But what I will say is that I was down to my last 2 processors, one good one and one that was so bad that it would have left me with maybe a 2 or 3% profit margin on a very good month. So with that being said, it was a lot of stress. There's a lot of things in this industry that will really stress you out. There's buying bad debt. There's the collectors in general, the turnover, the constantly changing laws, the chargebacks and the buyer's remorse with the debtors, the seasonal slumps. There's so little consistency, and consistency is something that I've really been craving for a long time, and I didn't think I was really going to find it in the collection industry. So as far as touching on this whole point of the quote unquote consulting that I've been doing, I think that a lot of people in the Slack group tend to forget how many people are in that Slack group. And I just wanted to remind you that I haven't said no to anybody up to this point. Anyone who wanted to join the group and anyone who seemed like they wanted to open an agency or start collecting from home, I was willing to help them. So what it ultimately came down to was countless hours of time that I was spending helping people start up agencies, and then they would abandon it after we spent 12 hours, setting up a database, getting the software set up, finding a portfolio, going through scripts, and at a certain point, as a consultant, there's nothing worse than seeing your time and energy go down the drain, and that's what I kept seeing happen. And then I was stolen from. That's a whole different story. I had to switch Slack groups because I had some some brokers get into one of the groups and sort of make it a not so safe place for startups. And just like a combination of things. I'm working on shutting down my agency, selling my agency, building software, starting a new job. I have so much stuff going on. My free time is very limited, and I'm just, I guess you could say, beyond burned out. And that's a huge problem, because having just started a new job, I need to be on top of my game. I need to show my worth to this new company in order to pursue this, this new path. And I'm not saying that I'm 100% getting out of debt collections, but what I am doing is I am severely limiting the amount of time that I'm going to talk to people about debt collections, consult for small agencies, build servers, whatever the case is. And I think I'm going to limit the number of one-on-one calls and conversations and emails, and try to do more like maybe a once a month or a bi-weekly live stream where a few people can all kind of hop in together. I've tried experimenting with having like a paid tier for consulting. So for X amount of dollars a month, I'll host your server, and then for X amount of dollars a month, I'll put aside an hour and a half to go over the plan and strategy with you and make sure that you're successful, and in turn help you help to ensure that you don't waste your money on bad purchases, and sort of learn from some of my experience, right? But I'm not a salesperson. It feels very unnatural for me to ask for money for consulting. But the amount of time that I'm putting in for the lack of any real benefit, and when I say benefit, I don't mean that I'm not having a good time getting to know all of you guys, because I am. I really, really am. I've met some awesome people in this group. But the problem is that I'm putting myself and my future and my finances on the back burner to help other people start up agencies. And I've had one too many people just drop out after I've put my time and energy into it, that I can't keep putting my time and energy in the way that I have been. So with all of that being said, I want to take a step back real quick and say that if I told you that I was going to help you with your startup, I'm still going to do that. We're going to have to actually scope out the project, what's required, and then set some expectations. Because the other thing that I can't do is I can't essentially help someone start an agency and then be a constant, on-call consultant. Anyways, this is probably a collection emergency, like they exist, right? But I have to go anyways, guys. I hope that you guys can understand where I'm coming from, and I will talk to you real soon.